Hello, my name is Jackson McMurray.
I'm Adeline McMurray.
And we are... I wanted you to say it with me.
Yeah, I got that because you made direct eye contact with me before you made this terrible plan.
This podcast is called No Nerds Allowed.
And no nerds are allowed.
That's a really good intro, actually. I think that would be a good thing for us to repeat. I really want, like, a royalty-free music, like, intro.
Yeah.
That we could find something on YouTube that's just, like, really pithy, that's in a million commercials already.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, and we're no nerds allowed, and there's no nerds allowed. It's like, I don't know what that was. Get the giggles out. We can't
so you gotta do the... What is this podcast? And then do your intro.
I'm just saying we gotta get the giggles out first because we can't be giggly at the beginning. See? This is why we needed to do it.
Go ha ha ha. And then...
It's hard to start that and not just start to laugh.
Yeah. It's like a vocal warm-up.
Yeah. Anyway, as we said, this podcast is called No Nerds Allowed. I'm Jackson McMurray.
And I'm Adeline McMurray.
And we are siblings. We are not married.
This is not the White Stripes.
We cannot stress enough how much this is not a White Stripes scenario where we say we're one thing but we are another. We are in fact siblings. This is the truth.
All you famous siblings better watch that glass ceilings, because it's about to break.
Glass ceiling?
Yeah.
Because that's true. There's a real glass ceiling for siblings in the movie industry.
Siblings are just locked out. We can't get in.
In the podcast industry especially.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Name a one sibling podcast. You can't do it.
There are none. Anyway, Adeline, I was driving here today.
Really?
This is my intro. And I came up with a theory of a definitive guide to when the Christmas season starts.
Okay.
This is my rule. It's kind of a formula.
Jesus is born.
I'm talking about yearly, not forever.
Jesus is born every year.
Okay. So, the earliest it could possibly start is Halloween, but only if it snows before Halloween.
Okay.
The latest it can possibly start is after Thanksgiving, but only if it does not snow until Thanksgiving.
Okay.
If it snows anywhere between Thanksgiving and Halloween, then when it snows is the beginning of the Christmas season.
I get that. Snow is... No, because, like, yesterday... It kind of snowed where we are. It snowed like an inch, but then it was 40 degrees today, so it all melted. And as soon as it snowed, first of all, it's been freaking freezing.
Yes.
So as soon as it started to snow, it made it being cold totally worth it. Because I was really complaining about it, and then it snowed, and I was like, all is forgiven. I get it. It was all worth it.
It's okay, God.
I'm so sorry. It's almost your birthday. No, but so, once it snowed, it made everything worth it. But as soon as it snowed, I was like, all right.
It's Christmas time.
It's Christmas go time.
Yeah.
Let's go. But it is not even Thanksgiving yet.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If it snows before Halloween, doesn't count. Mm-hmm. Not Christmas season yet, if it's still before Halloween. But if it snows before Halloween, that means the Christmas season starts as soon as Halloween
like
ends.
Midnight.
Yeah. And the same thing, if it doesn't snow at all, that means you gotta wait all the way until Thanksgiving.
Yeah, then it's after Thanksgiving. And
then it's Christmas time. This is the new rule. It has been put into law.
Okay, but you know Fred Meyer is like already like, hey, Christmas time.
That's true.
Put that snow right in that turkey. It's Christmas time.
Well, you know what? I gotta say, I shop at Fred Meyer now.
Oh. You've become a white suburban mom.
I have. It's just because they have it's what's closest to my apartment.
Yeah.
And they're not doing Christmas stuff yet.
Oh.
They have Christmas candy. But it's not, like, decorated for
What's
Christmas
the difference
yet.
between Christmas candy and regular candy?
It's got Christmas packaging on it.
Oh, okay.
It's the M&Ms that are red and green and white.
So everyone else is, like, Christmas go time, but Fred Meyer is like, you guys do your thing. Yeah. We're going to celebrate Thanksgiving. Like, good American.
Yeah, exactly. I also am not sure if Fred Meyer actually decorates for Christmas, or if
Oh,
they just...
they gotta. It's Fred Meyer.
Are you sure? I don't know. I guess we'll just see.
It's like Albertson, Safeway, all those homies. It's Christmas go time. They gotta move their buck.
Excuse me?
Why can't you just back me up? Why can't you just support me?
I mean, I agree with your sentiment. I'm just more concerned about moving their buck.
They gotta... What is the phrase I'm trying to say?
I really don't know.
They're trying to make that money?
Like
I
hustle?
guess they're trying to hustle that dollar. Trying to muscle that cash.
Yeah, sure. I guess.
Trying to flex on all them haters.
Flex. Oh, you dab on the haters. That's what you were thinking of.
No, I was not.
No,
don't put those words in my mouth.
No, by move that buck, you were trying to say dab on the haters.
I was not. Don't you dare.
So anyway, on this podcast, we are planning on having one piece of media that we focus on for the majority of the podcast, and one sort of lesser, smaller one. Big one will probably usually be a movie.
Maybe a video game.
Maybe a video game. Littler ones probably like music, like an album or a comic book maybe.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. At least if that's not the way it's always going to be, that's the way that it's going to be today while we're recording.
This one time.
Because that's what we have. As
Are you
of
doing
recording, what am I doing?
No, go on, do it.
Do you have something you want to say?
I just wanted to do it. You're doing all the intro stuff.
Okay, yeah, you do it
Hi,
then.
Franklin.
Do your intro.
Okay. Well, so since it's around the Thanksgiving times, and there's always the big Thanksgiving animated movie.
You're doing great.
I wish you would support me and just let me do anything.
Continue. I said you were doing great.
I am doing great.
You.
I'm doing so much better than you would have, and I wouldn't have interrupted you, so...
Well...
Put that in the bank and smoke it.
Put that in your dab on the haters.
Put that in your buck and tap. So it's almost Thanksgiving, and the big animated movie this year is Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2, the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph. So instead of reviewing that movie, we're gonna do the original, which kicks ass.
Yeah.
So am I allowed to say ass?
I don't know. See, I don't know if it's weird to put this in the podcast or not. Hopefully, the college I go to has like a podcast network, so maybe if we record a few episodes of these, I might want to shop it to them. I do not know what the rules about cursing on a radio
are you allowed to say...
college radio sanctioned
we
podcast
talk about
are.
this a lot, of like what you're allowed to say on the radio. Are you allowed to say ass on the radio?
I believe so. I think that's under the radar.
That's
I think
like one
ass
of the
is fine.
B-level
Yeah.
swears.
Like you could say like hell and ass and
duty.
Duty is fine, I think.
And b-hole.
I mean, b-hole is, you're even censoring yourself, so that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you say like what the F?
I think so. Because you're censoring yourself,
Yeah.
right? We could look this up, or we can just say this is fact.
No, we should just speculate.
Yeah, this is true.
My communications professor told me that the highest fine by the FCC goes to cocksucker.
So we're just gonna say it right now.
There's a post-production on this, and if I have to bleep that out,
just bleep it out. So the worst word is.
Yeah. So if I have to bleep it out, then this is gonna be totally ineducational, non-educational to all of our viewers.
So do you want to talk about Wreck-It Ralph, or do you want to just keep swearing?
Let's talk about Red Guy.
He's orange. Well, so before going into the notes, when we watch a film, we both take notes, and then that's what we're talking about when we talk about the film. But just like overall, this movie holds up like super well.
Yeah, it does.
Like in animation and in story, and most of all in comedy. Like, especially with animated movies, especially with kids' movies, like, you'll remember it being good, and you'll go back, and you're like, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
None of these jokes are lame. But with Wreck-It Ralph, like, 90% of their jokes, like, still landed, and landed hard.
And what's weird about the movie is that it feels a lot more like Comedy Central. Mm-hmm. Not like...
Yeah, it's
not like
Central.
Comedy Central, but, like, more comedically oriented than a lot of other Disney movies are. Like, the script feels like it was written by comedians. Or if not that, then, like, John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman were just given a lot of room to ad-lib.
Yeah, which I'm sure is true.
But like, yeah, it's like there's a lot more jokes in it.
Well, for example, when they're doing all the, like, candy racers and are going through names, and it's like, Buttermelon Butterhead. Like, that's hilarious.
That's really good.
Like, the one who's named Candlehead.
Yeah, that's still funny.
Which is a plot point later. Is really good.
So, the first thing I have written down in my notes about Wreck-It Ralph is just the phrase, John C. Reilly is perfect.
Oh, he does such a good job. Well, because that's the first thing that I have written down, too, is, like, Ralph is done so well. Like, he is the opening narration, and, like, the second that you meet him, you love Ralph. Like, they do such a good job, and that's absolutely because of John C. Reilly.
Right, and it's, I don't know, he just, not only does his voice just fit the part really, really well.
Oh, super, yeah.
But, like, and it's also just part of the script. Like, they imbue him with a certain, just, I don't know, immediate likability that I think lands really, really well.
It's like a kind of ragamuffin-y, I don't know, like, he seems like, I don't know, I'm doing a lot of shoulder movements right now that you can't really see, but, like, he's just like that, he's like the cool older kid that you hang out a little bit, you know?
Okay,
like,
yeah, sure.
But, like, you know when there's, like, youth group, or, like, when you're a little kid and there's, like, the big guy and all the kids want to, like, tackle him? He's, like, that kind of guy.
Gotcha,
He's, like,
I feel you.
Big and likable and kind of scruffy.
Right. And, okay, next thing I've written down here is, animation for Niceland stuff rules.
Oh, yeah, no.
In the sense that the people have that little jerky motion style, like they're in a video game. My girlfriend, Anna, is an animation major, and that's, like, her biggest thing in the world, is, like, having movies be different from each other in terms of animation style. And this is one of the few Disney movies that has, like, a style of animation that differentiates itself from anything else.
Yeah.
It is sort of sanctioned to this specific set of characters, which is whatever.
Well, but there's such a cool mix of animation styles, which I think is really cool, because you'll go from the 3D animation to 2-bit animation to...
Yeah.
And I wrote this down, too. That's the animation from... Because in this movie, you're jumping from game to game. You go from Wreck-It Ralph to Sugar Rush to Hero's Duty.
Yeah.
And, like, throughout, like, all of those games, every world that you go to, they all look different. And that's super cool.
Yeah,
like, there's
for sure.
different filters, there's different colors, there's different lighting effects. Like, you're not going to get confused... You're not going to confuse Hero's Duty with Sugar Rush for obvious reasons, but also because they're just so different.
Right. One of the things I was thinking about as I was watching this movie was I had the thought, like, wouldn't it be so much cooler if Ralph was animated that way, too? And then I thought, maybe it wouldn't be, because that'd be distracting as hell.
It would be very distracting.
Yeah.
I was about to interrupt you and be like, but that would be terrible.
I don't know. I would want to see it still. I don't think it's inherently a bad idea. I don't know. They probably tried it.
I mean, looking at the way that the Nice Towners, is that what their names are? What
sure.
they're called?
Nice Towners,
the Nice Towners. The way that they move, because
Nice Townies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The way that they move is distracting, but it's, like, in a nice way. Like, it's satisfying to watch them, like, move around and stuff, because they, like, do patterns and stuff that are, like, nice, and there's a pattern that you're watching. So I feel like if that was Ralph, I feel like it would be nice to watch, but it would just be distracting, because you wouldn't be watching the film. You would be like, haha, look at Ralph move around funny.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Why is Skrillex in this movie? Why is
because
he
wrote the song. He wrote the Hero's Duty song.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So this is like when Trolls, where they had all the YouTubers. They just had Skrillex.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, they needed a big ol' freaking crazy dubstep song for their game, so they got the big ol' freaking crazy dubstep guy to do it. And then I don't know, maybe it was like in his contract that he had to have a weird cameo like Daft Punk in Tron.
Daft Punk is in Tron.
Yeah, they're in it for a second.
Did these movies come out around the same time? Because there's definitely like a weird pattern of like musical artists having weird cameos in movies, and I feel like these are the only two examples.
There was another movie that Skrillex was in. It seems like I just
My
remember.
Dreams.
Maybe I think I might be thinking of Zoolander 2.
Is he in Zoolander 2?
Everybody was in Zoolander 2.
That would make sense because it was Zoolander 2.
Yeah.
And they have no shame.
Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay, so I'm gonna just jump into this point because it's kind of related to what we're talking about. Is that you are not excited about Ralph Breaks the Internet because you kind of feel like it's just like product placement to the extreme, and that's going to take away from production value. But that's absolutely what this movie is. When you look at the thumbnail for the movie... But
it's not their own product.
No, it's... Okay, well, first of all, let me finish my thought that I'm making. Because, like, the thumbnail for this movie is literally the 4 main characters and then a bunch of video game characters. There is a Subway cup in shot for, like, 10 whole seconds.
Right. Okay.
Like, it's totally unapologetic advertisement placement. So I feel... And this movie's great, so I feel like that's not going to take away from Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Okay, here's the thing. Is that, first of all, Wreck-It Ralph is video game... It adds a certain, like, verisimilitude to the story because it's a movie about video games, and if you just only made up your own thing, it wouldn't really make sense. And maybe that could be true about this being an internet movie, too, but it is different if they are just drawing stuff from all sources, like making the internet feel real. This is just Disney stuff. They go to the internet and they go to the Oh My Disney website.
I mean,
and they talk about Star Wars stuff and meet the Disney princesses. And it also looks not funny in addition to that.
Well, that's just because it's the trailers, and I never trust trailers because they're usually edited by completely different people and are not indicative of the movie. But also, I had a point here and I totally lost it.
Maybe because it was bad.
It was a great point.
Maybe I defeated you.
It was going to obliterate you. You were just going to explode and I'd have to clean you off the walls. Oh, God, what was it? Oh, in Disney's defense, Disney is a mega corporation and is huge. So when you go on the internet, there's a lot of Disney stuff because Disney owns everything. You talk about Marvel all the time, and that is a Disney product.
That's not this... This is the weirdest, stupidest argument for this discussion.
Oh, no.
Like, whatever. We're not going to get in a fight on this fucking podcast.
You just got weirdly mad about it.
I'm really mad about Ralph Breaks the Internet, so just get off my jock about it.
I was like, I don't think it'll be bad. And you were like,
God damn it. I love that moment where you're walking through the like game hub and Sonic the Hedgehog just blasts exposition at you.
I know. Hey, I'm Sonic. Remember, you die in real life.
They just like, I don't know, I guess that was kind of fun because it was like, we need to just like...
Wink, wink, nudge,
We just need to like tell the audience some things. Yeah. And I guess Sonic the Hedgehog is the best way to do that.
Sonic the Hedgehog telling you that you can and will die.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is kind of part of that. Like, I think putting characters that we knew in the background and stuff was actually super smart because then you're always looking at the background, you're always looking at details because you're like, oh, is Zelda gonna be there?
Yeah.
Is Sonic gonna be there?
Right. And that's the sort of thing that, it's sort of like the, like, idea in film theory that, like, oh, an actor is never totally detached from their previous works. When you see an actor in a movie, you will always automatically bring the baggage of things you've seen them in before. Mm-hmm. That's like part of the movie-going experience. And you can do kind of the same thing with, like, characters like this.
Yeah.
You know, when you see Sonic the Hedgehog, it brings a certain vibe. Like,
chili dogs!
you know Sonic the Hedgehog. You're like, oh, that's Sonic the Hedgehog.
I know him!
I know him from the titular Sonic the Hedgehog.
I know Sonic from Sonic?
Yeah.
I know him!
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of cool. I also want to take a second and appreciate the score in this movie.
Oh, freaking great.
It's done by Henry Jackman, who's not necessarily one of my favorite composers right at the moment. He did the Captain America movies, which I'm kind of lukewarm on. Not the movie, is the score.
Yeah, the score's a little basic.
Yeah, there's not really much to it. Anyway.
He's a basic bitch.
I saw... He did The Predator, the most recent Predator that I hated. And I actually... I am not an angry person. I feel like I'm coming off as a really angry person.
I'm not usually this
in
bad.
This inaugural podcast episode. I did not like the score for the Predator movie.
Didn't see it.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk about it for a second,
That's
so bear
fine.
with me. Because it was... Like, the movie was so, like, gritty and violent and whatever, but the score was, like, an Alan Silvestri score. It wanted to be, like, super 80s and cheesy.
Yeah.
And it just didn't fit. I didn't like it. Anyway.
Well, because you have the baggage of the entire Predator series, which starts in the 80s.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. That's...
Are you done being angry?
Here's me insulting Henry Jackman directly.
After saying I really
right
like
before
it.
I'm about to talk about how rad the score for Wreck-It Ralph is.
Yeah.
But that, that song that plays right when you first get into the, like, central hub, which is just, I don't know, it's really cool because it gives you that sense of, like, awe, and you are, like, immediately like, oh, whoa, look at this. But it also, like, keeps it under wraps a little bit. Like, it keeps the feeling of the fact that this is mundane to the people involved.
Oh, yeah, because they're all just,
never
like,
quite,
around.
yeah, like, it never quite, like, crescendos all the way to that big, exciting thing. It's like, oh, but chill out, because it's just, you know.
I think part of that is the use of depth, because all the people are kind of walking around at the same level, and if they wanted to make you think it was big and huge and important, there'd be, like, stuff flying past the camera, and all these different movements, and all these people doing all these different things, so it's just, like, people walking around, going around their regular business, because this is just, like, what they do. Like, Ralph gets stopped by internal affairs, like, it's totally, he gets racially profiled, like, it's totally just, like, what they're used to.
What was I going to say? I just have written down the hero's duty sequence rules. Is there something from previously in the movie that you have in your notes?
Oh, I want to talk about the relationship of Ralph and Felix and how it develops through the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do such... See, this movie is so character-driven, and it's so good, because the characters are so nice and fun and cool, and you care about them. Like, Felix is set up as the Mario character. Like, he's Mario. Right. We all know. We all love Mario.
Yeah.
And so Felix is like, he is a nice guy. He is sweet. He does a good job. But he is also a part of this system that might be not cool. So when Ralph comes up, not only is that just, like, that type of, like, awkward tension that used to make me want to die when I was a little kid, it also is just so great, because you can feel Felix wanting to be a good guy and wanting to be nice, but also not wanting to interact with Ralph.
Right.
And then, this has been pointed out before in this movie, where he goes from going, like, I'm looking for my colleague, to I'm looking to my friend, to when he finds Ralph, he's like, what's up, brother?
Yeah.
Like, I love you, Felix.
When he starts calling him brother at the end of the movie.
He's like, you coming on, brother? But, like, I don't know, like, this movie, if you didn't like Felix, this movie wouldn't work. If you didn't like the girl who's from the video game whose name I can't remember.
Jane Lynch.
If you didn't like Jane Lynch, then this movie didn't work. If you didn't like Vanellope, this movie wouldn't work. But because these characters are so cool and interact so well, even when they don't interact, this movie is good and great.
Can I go on a brief tangent about a totally different movie?
Do you want to get angry about something?
No, it's not angry. It's good, actually.
Okay.
Did you see Skyscraper?
No, I didn't.
It was that movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson where he, like, climbs a skyscraper and saves his family.
Yeah, that's the plot.
But there's this moment near the beginning of it where somebody, like, knocks on his door, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, it's like, it's his house, and he opens the door, and this white guy comes in, he's like, hey, what's up, brother? And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson does not react. He just acts like that's a totally normal thing for him to have said, and I think it's the funniest thing in the whole world. Anyway, that's my endorsement of Skyscraper.
You just talked about something. What was the last point you made? The hero's duty. I love the design of the girl in the arcade. Like, there's something just so, like, simple and nice about her design. Like, she looks like every third grader. She's so cute and sweet, and I love her.
Right.
And, like, the way that she plays Hero's Duty and the way that she plays Fix-It Felix, like, I don't know, I love this character. That, at the end of the movie, where she does the little fist bump with Vanellope, that's the cutest thing on the goddamn planet, and I love it. With Milli Vanilli. With Vanellope. It's just so cute. Like, I don't know, like, she's in this movie a lot.
Yeah, well, she doesn't have a lot to do, but they do a good job of characterizing her.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like I know this character so well, and she really isn't a character in the movie.
So, yeah, I think just from there, like, the hero's duty sequence is just really cool, because it's the first time we see a different game.
Yeah, it's
first
not
of all,
8-bit.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess you see the hub, which is, like, different from Wreck-It Ralph. Is that what the game's called? It's called Fix-It Felix?
Yeah, it's Fix-It Felix
Donkey
Jr.
Kong is called Donkey Kong.
It's called Fix-It Felix Jr.
Okay, are you
Yes.
really sure the game's not called Wreck-It Ralph?
No, because every time he introduces himself, he goes, I'm Fix-It Felix Jr. from the game Fix-It Felix
right.
Jr.
I was just thinking because it's, like, really clearly modeled after Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
And Donkey Kong is called Donkey Kong, not Mario.
But Pac-Man's called Pac-Man.
It's not. That's not what Fix-It Felix is like, though.
Mrs. Pac-Man is called Mrs. Pac-Man. Snake is called Snake. And it's about a snake.
What are you talking about now? Whatever.
Overwatch is called Overwatch.
Rush.
It's about Overwatch.
I'm just saying that the Fix-It Felix game is very clearly modeled after Donkey
Zelda
Kong.
is called Zelda, and Zelda's in it.
But Zelda's the bad guy in that, so...
Zelda is the bad guy.
You're just proving my point.
Going into some deep Zelda lore.
It's fucking her own fault for getting kidnapped.
I'm blaming the victim. Ganondorf is a Chad. All women are queens.
You gotta pick a side here, because you're all over the place with this weird rant you're going on.
I'm just in it for the goof, bruh. I'm just here to flex on them dollars.
I'm gonna destroy myself in a second here.
The amounts of details and textures in Sugar Rush is bananas.
Yeah, I have that written down, that like the candy in Sugar Rush just feels really good to look at.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's also... Sugar Rush is freaking gorgeous. It's so nice to look at. And then, like, everything has texture, everything moves. Like, he's, like, walking through lollipops, and he's, like, stepping on lollipops, and you can see them, like, get flattened and get crushed, and, like, it just looks so nice.
Yeah, it really does feel like candy in the way that it, like, things interact with each other. It's, I don't know, it's super cool.
And, like, the way that the sounds work, like, they do such... Oh, Sugar Rush is so cool.
Okay, so I have just a bit that I wanted to point out that I think is really good. There's the bit where Felix is talking to Cubert.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, my Cubertese is a little rusty. And he does that thing where he's like, and then he starts talking. I just think that's hilarious. I think that's really good.
So, what is that actor's name who plays Felix?
Jack McBrayer.
He only plays one character ever.
Yeah.
But he plays that one character so good.
Yeah.
Like, this... Felix is just Jack. Like, that's just him doing his thing. But we love Felix, so it works out and it's fine.
The next thing I have written down, I started to write, why does a kart racing game have tree climbing mechanics in it? And then I stopped and realized that I had become CinemaSins.
I had that same thought, but I was like, you know, like how in Mario Kart where there's like the pile of leaves and you like go through it, and then sometimes there's a good thing, sometimes there's a bad thing.
Right.
Like, it's just like, it could be a mechanic to a certain race level. Like, oh, maybe if you take one path, it falls apart. Like, it could just be a mechanic of the part of a game we don't see.
Okay.
Well, like, even because there's even that bonus level where they make the cart. So it's like, there are aspects of the game we don't see that affects the world.
And then there are just a lot of things in this movie that you kind of just have to take it at its word. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you're like, why though? Like, the movie's response is just like, fucking, what are you talking about?
This is a game about video games. What do you want?
There are two really good examples, which are, Vanellope's a glitch. She can't leave the game. It's like, what? Why? What? And, like, if anything, she should be able to leave the game more than any of the other characters.
Can Masingo leave Pokemon, Jackson?
No, but neither can any of the other Pokemon. Like, if they characterize her being a glitch by, like, her being detached from all the rest of the code. Yeah. So, like, if anything, she should be able to leave more than any of the other characters.
Jackson?
What?
I have some terrible news for you.
I've become CinemaSins.
You've become CinemaSins.
No, and the other one is, that, they're like, oh, Vanellope, if you cross the finish line, the game will reset. Like, what are you talking about? Why would it do that? Like, what? And it's like, it's fine because they kind of own it. They're just like, this is a thing that happens. Don't ask any more questions. And so you just kind of have to roll with it.
Well, I mean, it's because it's the exposition, because they tell you these are the rules, just go with it. It's like, I'll go with it.
It's like, why does the game reset?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, we already talked about Ralph being great, but, like, on that same side of that same coin, Vanellope is also great. Like, she's adorable, and their character relationship is so awesome and so cute and so sweet. Like, that scene where he's teaching her how to drive and they're both getting excited about it, like, is so sweet and adorable and really good.
I do want to bring up, though, that the very first scene that she's in is kind of weird. Because she's just, like,
there
hanging out in the forest, and you're like, who's this little girl hanging out in the forest? Like, what is she here? And it's not like, maybe if they had been, like, later, like, oh, she was out in the forest searching for a gold coin. Yeah. But they don't even do that. They're just like, here she is. Check out this girl.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, well, because she's a glitch, she's not accepted, so maybe she just hangs out in weird areas.
Lives there.
But they just don't tell you that. But then we already had a conversation about movies not having to tell us things.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It felt weird to me because it was just like, who are you? Why are you here? Why do I care?
So, the biggest plot hole about this movie is that they tell you that they can manipulate the code, and they show the characters manipulating the code. But then King Candy is like, oh no, Vanellope's on the roster. She's gonna break the game if she wins. Better get that coin out of the code. Why doesn't he just use the code to get her name off the roster list?
True.
Why doesn't he just... if he's in charge of the code, why doesn't he just do a better job of deleting Vanellope?
He didn't think of that.
It's a character decision. He's real dumb. It's like a Taco from the Adventure Zone. It's like, oh, this is a character choice. My character is an idiot.
So yeah, the next thing I have written down after I don't like the Vanellope intro is the candy textures are really good.
They're really nice.
And all the stupid candy jokes in this are still fun because they have this weird tongue-in-cheek element.
Oh yeah,
to them.
It's totally self-aware.
But yeah, it's because you can see everyone just be like, "What the hell?" I don't know. It's just funny. I can't precisely put my finger on why Vanellope getting bullied feels so awful.
I know.
Because the dialogue itself is absolutely nothing special. If anything, it's almost kind of bad. Because they're just like, oh, she's different. Let's kick her. It's totally, there's no nuance to it whatsoever. I think it is probably just the way that Sarah Silverman plays off of it in her performance.
Absolutely.
I think does a lot for it. I don't know, something about it just feels horrible. And I can't exactly put my finger on why. I mean, just like I said, because the script's not really anything special.
I think it's because at this point in the movie, we're not on Vanellope's side yet. At this point, we want Ralph to catch her and him to get the coin back. We don't not like Vanellope. Vanellope isn't the antagonist.
Yeah,
but
she's endearing. But...
Yeah, she's endearing and we like her and she's ragamuffin, but we're not on her side yet. So we're kind of detached a little bit. And so when she gets bullied and hurt, and then Ralph is thrown into being attached, we're also thrown into being attached.
Right.
So it's like... she is completely alone, and then the audience and Ralph are the only people to come in and be attached to her. The plot twist with he actually gets the real coin back without her helping him is the exact same twist in Tangled with the crown, where they're like, oh, he did get the crown back, oh, he's betraying you. You're not familiar enough with Tangled, and I can see it on your face.
You know what I'm realizing? I don't think I remember fucking anything about Tangled. I saw that movie 4 times in theaters.
Yeah, we saw that movie 6 times in theaters. I don't know why we did that.
They're looking for a crown in Tangled?
Yeah, no, because the Flynn... Okay, here's the plot of Tangled. Flynn Rider steals the princess's crown from the kingdom, and then he's escaping and goes into Rapunzel's tower, and then Rapunzel's takes the crown, and she's like, hey, I'll give you the crown back if you take me to the castle. And then at the end of the movie, when they fall in love, she's like, if I give him the crown, he'll leave me, and then the mom fakes that Flynn gets the crown back and that he leaves. So she's like, he got the crown back, he's leaving me. And then in this movie, they have the coin, and Ralph gets the coin, and then Vanellope's like, oh, he's leaving me because he has the coin. Because he got the thing that he wanted.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I did zone out about 20 seconds into your explanation.
Yeah, I could tell. Because you were about to question me, and I was going to be like, Jackson, I just explained this. That being
maybe
said...
you have something... Yeah, go for it.
So the twist that this is the same as Tangled, it's like, okay, it's fine that this is basically the same twist, because it's freaking heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Oh, Ralph beat... I'm going to start crying. Ralph destroying the car is just like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think Disney does better than not even other animated movies, just like any other studio, is that they so consistently have the emotional climax.
Oh yeah.
The
fucking Coco, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much every movie. Except for Incredibles 2.
I'm gonna meme you.
No, we can't do Incredibles 2 on this podcast because I will get too mad.
Because I like it and you don't.
And we will just get in a fight. That was the realest fight we've ever been in over a movie. Was after we saw Incredibles 2. We can't do this again. Anyway, Disney and Pixar both have this they understand the importance of the climax of the movie just being an interpersonal exchange that's really heartbreaking. And it's not that other movies don't do that, it's just that Disney really banks on that a lot. They are really intentional about making sure they always have that. And I just think that's great. I think that's really good. The song that plays when Vanellope is learning to drive.
Yeah.
That Rihanna song.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I get it.
It's just like really irritating and super doesn't fit with the rest of the movie.
Like, doesn't even really fit with that scene.
No, yeah, it's just a bad...
That montage is really good in what's happening in it.
Yeah,
but
it's a good enough montage, but that song for it is awful.
That song is bad. Especially when she, like, brakes, there's a moment where she stops and you have that little echoey, shut up and drive. It's like, God.
Yeah, it's awful.
I already talked about the being super character driven, and it's important. Russell.
Yeah. There's just...
Cyborg Turbo is freaking terrifying.
Okay, I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves because I have a couple other things.
You can do that. That's just the next thing I've written down.
Okay. There's just a joke in it that got me really, really good.
Yeah.
Where, Vanellope is like, oh, do you think they'll like me? And Jesse Riley's like, oh, they'll love you. Who doesn't love a brat with dirty hair?
I know. It was really good.
That was hilarious. I just thought that was great. I don't have any analysis of that situation.
Really
It was just a good joke, and I wanted to share it. And then I have written down, if she crosses the finish line, the game will reset. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why? We need more race sequences in movies.
Oh, no, because they're awesome. Oh, because all the ones that we have are so boring and basic.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, the ones that I remember are, like, the pod racing sequence in episode 1, which rules.
Which is the only good part of episode 1.
There are 2 good parts of episode 1, and the lightsaber fight's also good.
Darth Maul gets cut in half, come on.
Yeah, it rules.
Qui-Gon Jesus does.
Qui-Gon Jesus?
Yeah.
And this movie, which is a really good... And, like,
and the
they
chase
feel...
from Ant-Man.
I don't mean, like, car chase sequence.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
like, races.
Okay.
Yeah, there are car chases sequence all the time. That happens in, like, 90% of action movies.
I thought, well, because we talk about how we don't like car chase sequences usually because they can be kind of get blended together because they're all kind of the same. So I thought that was the point you were going to make.
No, I was just saying, like, we need more movies where, like, a race is, like, an event in it. It's just cool. I don't know. It's a weird little thing that doesn't get done very often.
Like in Batman and Robin, where they have the street race and the motorcycles on the crazy Gotham sculptures.
Does that happen?
Yes.
I just watched that movie pretty recently. Why don't I remember that?
Yeah, we watched all of those terrible Batman
Joel
movies.
Schumacher is the most buck-wild director in the world.
Dude,
that movie...
Who designed the Gotham in those movies? And were they on drugs?
God damn.
There's like freaking statues. They're like holding up buildings
then
they're racing on them with motorcycles.
That movie is so insane. I love it. Anyway, they set up these weird stakes at the end.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, all you have to do is cross the finish line. You don't have to win. We can't stress enough how much it doesn't matter how well you do in this race.
Well, because I actually really like that because it shows you how much Vanellope wants to win.
Right.
That's her goal. To her, that's what matters. So even if in the end game it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If she wins, as long as she passes the finish line. For Ralph and Vanellope, it's like, no, you gotta win because you're Vanellope von Schweetz and you were meant to race.
Right. I don't know. I think it's just a weird balance of, like, putting more emphasis on the emotional stakes than it does on the, like, real-ass stakes, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think it's... I don't know. It's a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that feeling the... I don't know. I guess... If they had just been like, you have to win, like, that would have been probably better, I think.
Yeah.
Like, we still would have known that Vanellope really wants and needs to win.
Well, because
it would just add more baggage onto it, and I think it would make it more suspenseful.
Well, because we already know she doesn't need to win, because the way that the character roster thing works is that just the top 9 racers are the ones that are in the game for the day. So that's why they're racing, and so we are told that she doesn't even have to get first place from the beginning.
Right.
First place is never the thing. The first place is only, in Vanellope's eyes, the most important thing.
But here's the thing about that. There's absolutely no reason for that to be the case. They just tell you that.
Well, but they tell you that. They told you.
My point is, they could have just told us something different.
I mean, yeah.
They did no work to establish.
You could have told us anything.
Exactly.
You told us this.
Precisely.
Okay, so I have... This is about the ending, so do you have anything before?
I got a couple of things.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the end.
It's like that whole end with, like, the turbo and all that stuff.
Yeah. The moment where he, like, glitches out... Are you looking at my notes?
Yes, I am.
The moment where he, like, kind of glitches out, and Penelope's like, who are you?
Yeah.
And Turbo's like, I'm Turbo! It's like, why are you saying this?
It's the exact same scene from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where he's like, when I killed your brother, I looked like this!
Exactly. And, like, it even does this weird thing where, like, I don't think Vanellope even asks. I think it, like, cuts to Ralph across the world, and he's like... Who's that? And they cut back to Turbo.
On the other side of the cosmos.
Yeah, they cut to Turbo and he's like, I'm Turbo and I did it. And he just like explains why he did it.
That's
just then.
written in all caps on your notebook.
I was just like, this is dumb. Like, I wish I wish they would have just let us make the connection that it was Turbo.
Yeah, that it was Turbo, yeah.
Or, I don't know, just did it in a more subtle way. It just made me laugh.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's very in character for Turbo. His whole thing is being the center of attention, so him being like, I'm Turbo, look at me, is totally in character.
And the other thing, it's, I don't know, not horrible, I just thought it was dumb.
Yeah.
Where Ralph is, like, punching at the Mentos volcano.
Yeah.
And he, like, literally says out loud, he's like, okay, just one more punch! And then he gets, like, slapped away.
Okay, that happens in every movie ever. Don't act like
I know, but I just think it's dumb. Especially because he, like, literally says it out loud. He's like,
just one more!
Here I go with the last punch!
This time I'm gonna have to jump.
Exactly.
I feel like, as cool, first of all, I already said this, Cyborg Turbo is freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
Second of all, as cool as the end fight is, the entire ending of this movie kind of feels like a cop-out. Like, it's...
Right.
Like, we have this really emotional and awesome sequence where he's, like, saying the thing that he was taught to say is, like, I'm a bad guy and that's okay, and him sacrificing himself for Vanellope. And then it's just, like, everything's fine, he doesn't die, everything's perfect, everything's happy. It's like, I kind of wish Ralph would die. I feel like
that way they wouldn't make a dumb movie about the internet 5 years later.
Well, it's just like, I feel like that would be really fucking sad.
Yeah.
And it would be great.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm, like, confused by the morality of this movie a little bit. Because it's part of that, like, wave of, like, weird movies where the moral is, like, it's okay to be a bad guy.
Well,
and you're like, I don't understand.
Well, it's not okay to be... Cause it's more that Ralph was never a bad guy.
Right. And that's what it means in this movie.
Yeah.
But, in the case of Megamind and Despicable Me, which came out like in the same year,
it's okay to just murder people.
Yeah, it's weird because like all three of these movies came out really close together, and I don't know if it was like studios like catching wind of what they were doing and trying to like do it better than each other, or if it was really one of those weird pieces of synergy in culture.
Well, I do know that with Megamind and Despicable Me, it was that like, oh crap, we made the exact same movie at the same time.
Oh, really?
Because I think it's DreamWorks that does Megamind, and it came out right after Despicable Me, and everyone was like, we already have Despicable Me.
Right.
And so then it did really bad. And Megamind is a good movie.
Megamind's good.
Megamind's a good movie.
Yeah, no, but it's just one of those weird things where, like, sometimes there are just, like, things in culture that, like, weirdly line up. Like, I was watching Atlantis the other day, which came out in the year 2000.
Yeah.
And they've got that whole sequence with, like, the weird submarine, and it, like, totally looks like the Gungan City from episode 1.
That's true.
It looks, like, exactly like it. And that movie in episode 1 came out, like, 6 months apart from each other. And it's not like they were talking and copying from each other.
Yeah.
They just both happened to have weird, stylistically similar submarine sequences.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know, that's fascinating to me.
So, about the ending of this movie, I feel like the end of this movie is kind of just like a tying up everything within a perfect bow, and I don't like it until the ending narration, which is fuck you, CinemaSins. Narration can be really good.
Yeah.
Because I love the way they introduce this movie, because Ralph is introducing you to his life, and I think that's part of the reason why we love Ralph so much from the get-go. But so then ending the movie from Ralph's new perspective is great.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And it's fucking adorable with him talking about Vanellope on the game. Now at the end of the day, he can always see her. Like, it's really great. Good. And like that's the only part. Like that makes the bad ending good, because that part's really cool.
One of the things that this movie does really, really well is deliver like setups and payoffs. Mm-hmm. That's not usually a technique that Disney is super reliant on. But this movie is just like really smart about like showing you things in one space and then having it pay off a little bit later. I should have written down some examples because I'm immediately realizing that I can't think of any.
You don't have any?
But while I was watching it, I was thinking that, so it must be true.
So something triggered that.
Yeah. I just have another joke written down that I think is really funny. Yeah. Right at the end when she turns into a princess and all the little girls are like, oh, that's right, she's a princess! I thought that was really good. I thought that was hysterical.
Oh, crap, we forgot!
And I think one of the girls is literally like, oh, that's right!
Yeah.
And I think that's hilarious.
So I feel like we haven't talked about yet is the love interest whose name I can't remember, and they defo tell you what her name is.
Yeah, Jane Lynch.
Jane Lynch. I really like her character. I think she's a super fun character, and how like self-aware it is, where it's like, this is the strong female character, and that's the joke within the movie.
And like the fact that she's so weirdly flat is like kind of part of it.
Is the joke, yeah, and it's like she has the most tragic backstory.
Yeah.
And the whole like dynamite gal sequence is hilarious. Like, I love how they use her character, and I think I don't mind the love interest in like the love story in this movie, because I think it's, first of all, it's funny.
Right.
And second of all, I like all of these characters, and so when these two characters get together, I'm like, yay, I'm not like blindsided by romance.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. It's funny, like the fact that I almost called him Lester. What's his name?
Felix.
Felix.
Lester.
I don't know.
I feel like if
Fix it, Lester.
I feel like if Wreck-It Ralph is like the Donkey Kong of that universe, then Lester is like the Bowser.
Yeah.
He's the one that comes in a little bit later, but becomes the true villain.
Lester. Anyway, but the fact that her and Felix
Lick it, Lester. Sorry.
The fact that her and Felix get together is like such a funny thing, but like also really moving because they're both of their characters. I think that's fun. And you see how their relationship develops too. This movie just handles character relationships so well, so good. Like, even when we're not shown stuff, like, it's good. It's a good movie.
Song in the credits. Your thoughts?
I'm not gonna lie, I kinda like it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like it.
It's the one that plays in the freaking light parade at Disney, too.
Yeah, cause it's great.
It's like the worst song.
It's been fun, but now we've got to go. I'm not gonna lie, when I was like 8 and I heard that song for the first time, and that was before I bought any music, I was like, I wanna go to iTunes and buy that song.
When can I see you again?
I really liked it.
Goddamn.
I think it's cool. It's Owl City, and it's got a lot of energy to it, and I like it. Shut up.
Okay. All right. I bought my girlfriend the record of the Owl City album, and it's a fucking tight record. It was like a double LP that were pressed on like blue and white vinyl.
Man, the hipster just like jumped out.
Yeah, I was like, damn. Who put this much energy into pressing the Owl City record on vinyl?
Hey, you're gonna get a call from a very angry call from Anna.
I know, I probably will. It's okay. She knows that I don't like Owl City.
Is that song on that album?
No, it's not.
Is Peppermint Winter on that album?
No, Peppermint Winter's the best song in the world.
We'll have a specific segment.
Yeah, maybe we can just do a whole episode about Peppermint Winter. Peppermint Winter's Owl City's Christmas song.
It's a masterpiece.
Incredible. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, just like the music in this, like the pop music in this movie.
The music that they shove into
just in general could have been better. The Sugar Rush theme is really fun.
I love the Sugar Rush theme.
And the fact,
jump into your racing car.
I don't know if this was actually a Japanese band or not, but the fact that they have like some lyrics in English in the middle that are like weirdly like don't feel like somebody who speaks English.
No,
I think they just totally nailed that.
I think it was because I remember seeing Japanese in the credits. I could be remembering this totally wrong.
Is the song in Japanese?
I don't know.
Because they don't.
It doesn't. No, because like jump into your racing car. They say it super weird. They don't say it like I'm saying it.
It sounds like a Japanese person who's like memorized the syllables for jump into your racing car. And I don't know. Like that's just the way that it is with J-pop. They totally nail it.
It's a cool flavor. It's
Shut
like,
up and drive.
Shut up and drive. No, but I was the 13-year-old nerd is gonna jump out at me real quick.
Cool.
There's this part in the Lucky Star, which is an anime, which is like the only anime that I watch. There's this lyric where they're like, Japanese, 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 apple pie, and then they just keep going.
Do they just not have a word for apple pie?
No, I think they were trying to get the aesthetic of saying apple pie.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Also, the other song in the credits, your thoughts?
What was that song?
Wreck-It Ralph.
That sucks a lot.
He's a giant of a man. What are the lyrics?
That's the equivalent of the Elastigirl theme song from Incredibles 2.
Oh, no, they do all the...
Elastigirl!
They do all three of them. They do Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl and Frozen. They all have their own little songs.
They all suck.
Yeah. No, they're all bad. I mean, they're kind of supposed to be bad.
They're supposed to be bad. They're mimicking the 60s theme songs like Spider-Man,
Right.
he has radioactive blood.
He has radioactive
Jizz.
cum.
I knew exactly what you were gonna say.
Mine was better because it still rhymed though.
He's got radioactive queef. There's so many layers to unwrap on that joke.
Okay. Anyway, now that that's in the podcast,
now that that's not getting edited out,
can we start a band called Radioactive Queef? Like a death metal band?
I'm breathing in the chemicals.
No, wait, I have to do the joke. I can't do it because I'm laughing too much. Okay. Here it is.
This isn't good audio.
I wonder if that puts up. Do I need to do it a second time?
No,
better?
you're good.
Anyway, now that we've got all our queef material out of the way.
That's a good band name, Queef Material.
Queef material. We can't do this. We can't keep talking about queefs.
Well, okay, well then we'll finally know the answer if you can say queef on the radio. Because you'll give it to your professor and he'll be like, you said queef 17 times.
Oh my lord.
You are issued a fine of thousands of dollars.
I want to say though that I like a movie with good credits.
Yeah.
Like a fun
I
credit
love the
sequence
credits,
is very important. Even though I hated the song, like the credits themselves were fun.
Really cool and stylized and colorful. I always sit through the credits because this is the industry that I don't want to go into, get all up into. And so I like to pay respect to the people who worked on the movie. And now that movie makers have made that a fun thing to do, I have more fun doing it. It's like, oh, is there an extra scene? I'm here anyway because I'm a good person.
I was actually thinking about this the other day. Here's my status on staying through the credits.
Yeah.
I do.
Yes.
Unless I see somebody coming to clean the theater walk in the door. Then I leave that instant. Because I used to work in a movie theater, and, like, as much as I understand staying through the credits, like, when they stayed all the way through the credits, it meant it, like, literally made my job harder.
Yeah.
And I hated it when people did it.
And then you had to listen to all the music.
I mean, that too. That is also fair. But, like,
and you had to watch Caesar die, like, 17 times.
Sometimes I would be behind because I was waiting for people to leave because they wanted to stay through the credits. Mm-hmm. And I would, like, get behind my little cleaning schedule and I would be all stressed out. So, like, me personally, now I know, like, the, like, weird sort of vague appreciation for people who don't know I'm doing it is one thing, but, like, me being super committed to doing that is, like, literally making one person I can see their life getting harder.
You can see them crying.
Exactly.
You can feel their tears.
Yes. So, do we want to move on to our sort of backup feature?
Our B plan.
All right, yeah, which is
B team.
Marvel Knights #1, a comic book that I made you read.
Yeah.
I'm going to explain a little bit because
you didn't when I read it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really, like, the story itself is not complicated. It's just the title that's weird. Yeah. Which is that Marvel Knights was when Marvel was going bankrupt in the 90s. It was like this publishing initiative they did. I think it started in 98 with the Daredevil series. But there was
I cannot give you a lifeline. I can't pull you out by your bootstraps on this one.
But it was like, oh, we've got like regular Marvel, which is like the Avengers and Iron Man and Captain America and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Marvel Knights is like all our like street level stuff. So like Daredevil and Spider-Man and Moon Knight all got put under the like Marvel Knights imprint. Yeah. And it was like grittier and more intense, and that was just the way it was for a little while. And it did really well for Marvel. It was like one of the reasons they didn't go bankrupt. Yeah. So that's what that was, and they did that for a few years, and they stopped eventually. But this is it was the Daredevil series, because this is the 20th anniversary of that publishing initiative, and I know that Daredevil series started in 98. So as is the...
So you know how you spaced out when I described the plot of Tangled?
Right. So this is the sort of 20th anniversary extravaganza of Marvel Knights. So they're just doing this little series that is I believe it's an out of continuity. I think it's just a standalone story.
I like those.
It might not be, though. It's
no.
weird. But yeah, so it's just a short, limited series that's not about any one specific character. The plot of which being that, like, all the superheroes, like, lost their memory for some...
Doctor Doom related reason.
Yeah, for some reason that is not explained. It's a mystery. And it's about...
And it's a part of our history.
True.
Yes, it is. God bless America.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really fun because it's written by Donny Cates, who is writing Venom and Thanos and what else? Doctor Strange. Actually, he's not writing Doctor Strange anymore. He just finished Doctor Strange.
All the Chads of the Marvel Universe.
Sure, if you say so.
You can cut that joke, so it wasn't funny.
Okay.
I thought it would be funny, and then as I delivered it, he was like, you know what? This is a bad goof.
Okay, but those series are all super good, and I really like Donny Cates as a writer. He only started writing for Marvel, like, a year ago, and he totally just, like, hit the ground running and started writing, like, the tightest shit in the world. I was like, oh, yo!
This guy knows what he's doing!
I know. Because, yeah, so, your thoughts?
Okay, just gonna throw me to the deep end of the pool.
I just have been talking for like a solid minute and a half.
I feel like, as someone who literally only gets their comic book information through you, I felt like Marvel threw me into the deep end of the pool. Because the way the comics work, I thought that I was supposed to know what was happening because it's comics, and there's a backlog of 20 million issues.
That's fair.
So when they're like, here's a cop, here's Daredevil, they have a relationship, I feel like I'm supposed to know what that relationship is.
But part of the story is that you don't
even
know.
though I'm not supposed to. So it's weird. Because it's a comic book, I felt like I was supposed to know what was happening, even when I wasn't supposed to know what was happening.
That's fair enough. There's a lot of stuff in comic books that sort of like opens up to you once you get a basic familiarity with all the characters.
Well, that's why I like limited series. That's why I like one complete story by itself, because then I can get all the information that I need without...
You do need to need it.
Yeah. That's a part of needing it. But so I could just get like all the information, the whole story, and not have to worry about knowing the entire history of the character or the character relationships. And without getting that stupid little blurb that's like, go back to Spider-Man 371. And it's like, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, okay. They don't do that anymore though.
Yeah, because it was bad.
Well, no, it's just because like there's sort of a mantra in comic book writing that
you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. And the thing is that every like writer who writes a series, they write in their own bubble, sort of. Like this story exists on its own as a story. Like sometimes it's tying into other stories other people are doing, and it's like kind of weirdly connected to everything else. But for the most part, like when there's like one writer on a series for a certain amount of time, like that story in and of itself exists as a story. Some people who are like way too into comic books like try to turn the Marvel universe into like this one continuing narrative and like point out all the things that don't match up, and it's like, how come he says this in this comic book when in Amazing Spider-Man 115 in 1969 he clearly saw an alien? Why is he surprised that he is seeing an alien in this one?
Because that's Miles Morales.
Yeah, well, it's not even that it's inaccurate, it's just like, you can't do comic books this way.
It's like because they stopped and restarted and hired 7 different writers within that time span.
And, you know, every writer sort of picks and chooses what elements of, like, the canon they want to use. Yeah. A good example is, like, in Brian Michael Bendis' X-Men run, where they go back in time and get the X-Men from the, like, original X-Men lineup and bring them to the present. And it's, like, that whole time travel thing. But it's very much, like, let's go back in time to the 60s and, like, take them from there. And it's, like, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, almost. Yeah. But it's just, like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Like, this is nothing.
If you go back in time in this timeline to the 60s, it's not going to be the 60s comic book.
Exactly.
Because then Peter would be, like, 1,000,000 years old.
Exactly, precisely. So,
it's like McCree, who's 100 years old now.
The way that it works out is, like, you basically just pick and choose, and everything that you need to know, the artist will tell you. Yeah. And that's sort of the problem. I sort of felt this way when I started reading comic books, too, is that you think you need to know more than you do.
Yeah.
So you think that the artist isn't giving you everything you need, when typically they are.
Well, that's a lot of the reasons why I love Squirrel Girl so much, is that it's defo a comic book made for younger readers, so they don't even expect you to know any of this stuff. Like, they don't even put that, like, your idea in your head. They don't even let you think that. They're like, here's Dr. Doom. Here's a card who explains who Dr. Doom is and why he's here and who this fella is.
Right.
And as someone who is not... I read comic books when I want to read comic books, so I'm not super up to date on it. So when they, like, tell me who this weird random villain is who's from Spider-Man 159 from 1976, I'm like, thank you for telling me who this is.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that a lot of the time, if you get too hung up on, like, who is this guy? What's his whole story? Why is he doing this?
Yeah.
Like, you can be like, he's a supervillain. He's the Rhino.
Yeah.
He's a big guy in a rhino suit. You know that because you can see him.
He's here to Rhino.
Like, you know, and there is 40 years worth of backstory on this guy.
But you don't have to.
Need it.
Yeah.
And it might enrich your experience of this comic, but if you're just like, the Rhino's robbing a bank, you can be like, tight. Like,
oh no.
So yeah, there's a weird sort of doublethink, basically, that has to go on when you're reading comic books.
You have to start parallel universe.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I guess I totally get what you're saying about Marvel Knights in particular, because it's a mystery. And
and I feel like it's already
if you're
a mystery.
used to, yeah, exactly. If you're used to comic books always being a mystery, then it doesn't quite click.
That's really good.
But I don't know, the thing that I really like about it is, I have, like, one big pro and one big con about this, which is, the big pro that I really like is that it's a good way, well, at least I thought before, it was a good way to just, like, tell stories about these characters, like, in a vacuum, in a way that's, like, easily approachable, and it's just like, check this out, here's Daredevil and the Punisher and the Hulk's in the back, and, you know, these guys, just, here they are.
So what I immediately recognized in this comic, I was like, that's Daredevil, that's my boy.
Right.
He's got a beard and he looks great. And then,
okay.
Step one. And then it was like, that's Foggy. I know who Foggy is. And then it was like, that's She-Hulk. Oh, that's cool. Why is She-Hulk with Foggy? Like, I got all those elements, and that was cool. I was like, oh, why is Bruce Banner being arrested? Oh, why is Bulls... Like, I recognized all the characters.
Right.
And that kind of introduced a mystery aspect, because I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to know what's happening.
Yeah.
So once I realized that I was supposed to be in the dark, then I was having much more fun.
Did they say that Frank Castle is the Punisher?
No.
Oh, okay. They just said his name, Frank Castle, and you were supposed to know that's the Punisher.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they were like, Frank sent me, and I'm like, who? I thought the police officer's name was Todd, because I misread a line.
But my big complaint about this is it's really fascinating the way that a colorist can shape the way an artist's art is presented. The artist on this issue is called He's called Travel Foreman. His name is Travel Foreman. His first name is Travel.
He is a person whose name is Travel Foreman.
Exactly. Anyway, he did a run on a comic book called Ultimates a little while ago, which was just bananas. It was like this crazy, weird, like colorful. Maybe I'll show you a picture when we're done. I can't show you a picture over podcast. Yeah. But it was just this
create a mindscape for me.
But it was this story that like is all about like the multiverse and alternate dimensions and like layers of the cosmos, all this crazy like wackadoo stuff.
Oh, this crazy person.
And so everything was like weirdly colorful and everything looked like galaxies, and it was like, and it had this really, really distinct style. But in this comic, it doesn't. And it's just because the same person drew it, but somebody else picked the colors. And the colors this person picked were like skin color.
Yeah, I didn't notice it.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it was interesting, and the fact that I was so excited to pick this up, because I was like, Travel Foreman rules.
Oh, yeah.
But then this
the
was
colorist
just like,
was different.
Yeah.
As someone who does digital art and sucks at coloring, I have a lot of respect for colorists, because it's hard.
Yeah, man.
Like, you think like, oh, I'll just make that red, and they're like, well, that red doesn't look with the color good with the brown of the jacket or with the skin color. Like, it's hard to color things.
And another thing that I liked about this issue is just like the action, like the physical people fighting, felt really like clear and articulate. A lot of the times in comic books, you get action sequences that are just like
really disjointed.
Here's a punch, and you got punched. And then the next panel is like, here's a kick, this guy got kicked. And like basically all you know is like who's kind of winning at any point.
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
action doesn't feel like a real action sequence. It's just
No.
like a series of pictures.
Especially because usually they're talking during it.
Yeah.
They're like, you killed my sister with the ray gun that I'm going to steal, Punch.
Yeah. And of course that's not always true. But
it's always true.
The thing I liked about this issue so much was that, like, it wasn't big ridiculous fight scenes. It was like Matt tries to run away, the Punisher grabs his Carl. The Punisher grabs his collar.
Lester and Carl are gonna take down the world.
Okay.
Lester and Carl break the internet.
So I don't know. The violence feels really like explicit, and there's like a flow to it, and like things move from one thing to the next rather than just being a series of punches. And that is just something you don't like see super often in it. Here's the other thing is that I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to keep getting it. One, because I am trying to save money, and the other is that every issue has a different writer in this series, which weirds me out.
How is that?
I mean, I'm sure all four of them
talk to each other,
like got together and were like, "Here's the plan. We're each gonna write a quarter of this."
Yeah, because if they didn't, it would just be unreadable.
Yeah. But it's still like it just seems like a red flag.
Yeah.
I really liked this first issue, but like the fact that it is gonna be changing around so much feels like kind of a weird thing to be doing.
Ignore me.
Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. How are we going to close out this podcast? What's our outro going to be?
Can we get...
Do we have a word from our sponsors?
Well, because somebody said no nerds allowed. My first thought was like a clubhouse, kind of. Like, no nerds allowed.
Right.
So I was like, could we get like the sound effect of like a wooden door being closed? Like right in the listener's face because they're a nerd.
Because they're a nerd and
Because
they're
the nerd that's not allowed.
Like,
get out, bitch.
That's our outro.
Get out, bitch. We're not allowed to swear.
I don't know if we're allowed to swear. Let's just swear for the time being.
Okay. We'll swear until we're not allowed to swear.
Exactly, yeah. If I pitch it to somebody and they're like, also, you can't swear anymore, then we'll be like, okay, we'll not swear anymore. But until then, let's just continue. We had about 10 minutes of queef material on this podcast.
But that's not a swear. It's dirty, but it's not a swear.
I'm just imagining, like, the same intro music. We're like, all right, and we'll see you next time. And, like, that music comes out, and then it starts to fade out, and there's, like, a second of silence, and it's just, get out, bitch!
See, that would be great. I'm a genius.
Okay, fine.
No, we can't do that. The goof is good. The reality is bad.
Yeah. Oh, this should be my 1-star review segment.
Oh, what is that?
Where I just read a really nasty 1-star review
yeah,
of
do
whatever
that.
we talked about. 1 second.
Hold on, everybody. This is gonna be great. So, Jackson is going upstairs to grab his phone so we can do a 1-star review of Wreck-It Ralph. And our dad is upstairs watching Chips. And welcome to Adeline's asthma. It'll end as soon as Jackson gets down the stairs. He's coming. Here he comes. And that's the end of that.
Okay. I promise whatever you said is not funny.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I might do a 1-star and a 5-star, because sometimes the 5-star ones are really hilarious too.
Yeah.
People are like, this movie, what do you do when a movie makes you feel something you've never felt before? And it's like The Matrix 2.
Yeah. It's like Matrix 4, the Matrixanine. So we're gonna do, to close out the episode of the podcast, we're gonna give you a 1-star review of Wreck-It Ralph. So, Jackson, what do the masses have to say about Wreck-It Ralph?
This review comes from Robbie on Letterboxd.com. He says, it was a fuckload of old crap. Crikey, they don't call it a non-Pixar. Sorry. Crikey, they don't call it a non-Pixar and a Disney classic movie for nothing, do they?